So lastly, we have the district goal report. So at the next three Board of Education meetings, we'll be reporting out on the district goals on the 8 different performance indicators. So tonight will be engagement rates and attendance. Then at the following meeting, September 12th, we'll discuss graduation and matriculation data, and then the following we'll discuss the remaining 2 performance indicators, which are ACT and AP. So here to report out tonight is Assistant Principal of Student Affairs, Dave Mannon, and Assistant Principal of Athletics, Tom Dolman. Since they reported out in June on attendance, and that report the numbers haven't changed and the information hasn't changed, we've provided it in the board packet for you, but they're going to focus their presentation solely on the engagement rates.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Kristen. Good evening, board. Today we're going to review engagement data from last year, which included participation numbers from over 35 clubs and activities and over 26 athletic offerings. So the first chart that you'll see is overall engagement, which includes an extracurricular activity and sports. For this year, engagement percentage was up from 63 last year to 66%. Our district goal is 70%. We're inching our way up closer. This is the highest percentage we've seen in several years, so we're excited about that and to report out on that. The box below the first chart, we broke down each class, and I wanted to include last year's data so that you can have kind of a baseline for where we're at last year and where we're at this year. And it's pretty interesting to see the breakdown for one activity, for students only involved in one activity or sport, and then to 2 and 3. And what we saw, if you look at the totals at the bottom, not a significant difference in the number of students that are just in one activity. We saw an increase in our juniors there slightly. And then if you move into students involved in 2 activities, we actually decreased there by around 14 or so. But what we're really excited about is our students that are really getting involved here and reaching out more than just 2. So they may be in 3 or so. And we saw over 100 increase there at that level. So that's what we want, I think. And we had a meeting before this, and we're talking to some of our club sponsors about branching out and really diversifying yourself not only as an athlete, but as someone that's going to be well-rounded heading into college and having those experiences. And I know our athletic directors talk about that. No longer can we just focus in on one sport, and to really buff up your skills in any sport, you really need to diversify that experience. And so over 100, that's where we're at, and we want to continue to grow that. Overall, if you look at the numbers from last year, we're up about 70 students. We did grow our population last year, so we want to take that into consideration as well. But overall, 66%, we're excited about that, and we'll continue our efforts on our end to promote engagement through marketing efforts, through increased activities, diverse activities that our club sponsors can get involved in. Before we break out the sport and athletic numbers, I just want to talk briefly here. So we had roughly 339 students participate in a club or activity only, and there was 540 students that did not participate in an extracurricular activity. So it's our focus this year to really hone in on those students, see what's going on, why aren't they not involved in anything. We're going to do that through a survey, and then feel out how we can connect them into our sponsors and experiences here on the school. You want to talk about your numbers?
Yeah, the numbers for the athletics and sports there, 737 students participated in a sport, and then there's a breakdown of whether it was 1 sport, 2 sports, or 3 sports. How that compares to last year, the total number of roster spots last year was about 1070 if you add everybody up in every sport. This year was about 1023. So it's about a drop of 50 students roster spot wise. We saw most of that in the 2-sport athlete. There was 20-some less 2-sport athletes. And if you break down the individual sports, which we do during the year each season, it basically zeroes in on boys football and wrestling and track. Probably had the most significant decreases, even though those sports are doing very well. They're prospering. In fact, they're high-level sports. The track was a conference champion. Football state playoff every year. Wrestling, very competitive. But they did lose a few athletes in those sports, but it didn't really affect the outcome of their competition levels. They're still competing at full levels, full squads, and doing very well. So some of it can, if you want to put reasons on it, obviously football, there's a concussion worry out there all over all high schools. So when you look at all the other sports, pretty much that's a couple up or down in each sport. There's not too many other sports that are dropping very far. We have a couple good increases. Our pom program increased a lot. Our girls gymnastics program is starting to rebound and get more people in a lot higher rigor as far as their competition. So we probably will never see huge increases in athletics numbers without adding sports, because they're pretty much saturated, and about 80% of the sports are pretty well up to the maximum number. We're competing in every sport at all levels in our conference, so we're showing a team in freshman level, sophomore, JV, varsity, whatever that sport entails. So we're doing good there. We actually only have one sport right now that isn't competing in 2 levels consistently, and that's out of all of our sports in every season. So that's, when you look at 26 sports.
What sport is that?
Girls golf last year competed on the varsity level and didn't have quite a JV level to compete on. So that was the one sport that isn't high on numbers, but that's unfortunately common in a lot of schools, that golf tends to have up and down depending on the clientele, so to speak, and comes in. It does change a lot. But again, some of the things we're working on, and Dave will go into what he plans for the engagement, but underneath it, the athletic participation, we have some goals there, and bullet points I'll mention after Dave finishes his.
Yeah.
A question, Gary?
Yep, we're okay.
Okay.
Just so at the end of each year, we sit down with our sponsors. We have an end of the year meeting, and we just review goals for next year. And we compile those ideas along with ideas from our principal student advisory board. It's comprised of several students in various classes. And what we saw was communication. I think that always comes down to communication. How can we give access to our students? The idea came out from the PSAB team to have our students, as they open their Chromebooks, an activities calendar through our Google Chromebooks, which is another way to use our one-to-one initiative, but also to start acclimating students to an online calendar. So they'll have access to see what activities are meeting on which day, what time, what location, things like that. So that's something new that we're going to do next year. We're going to do a kiosk. We're working on that. So as they enter the building, you'll have a TV or a kiosk right there that'll show them, hey, what's going on in the building that day. And then also, I just want to make it publicly known that activities really come from our students and their interests. And last year, it was a big interest in lacrosse. And we started at 0. And I think through just the motivation and determination of families and students to get that program running, we're successful and had over 38 students running, and we held various games and held a home game that was really well attended as well. So we always want to promote, if students have ideas, to come down and see me, we'll review the participation packet, and if they can get 25 or more participants signed up, we're going to run with it. And that's something that we're doing next year. It happened at the end of the year, but we're teaming up with the first organization, and we're running a robotics program next year. You guys will probably see tonight. So we're excited about all these opportunities to advance extracurricular opportunities for our students going forward. And we're just excited about where our numbers are at and where we're headed. So
the board understands when within the first, Dr. Keene was here, Laura was here, Gary was here. When I ended my first year, started my second year, we wanted to start defining, after I was working through some of the financial issues that the district had on its plate when I started as superintendent, we wanted to define some goals or benchmarks that every year we can measure ourselves against. And so there was some discussion amongst the board in regards to, what is a top performing school in the state of Illinois a non-charter school, non-selective enrollment school look like. And so over the next 3 meetings when you hear this reporting out, these were some of the goals that I came back to the board with. And these are things that we should be measuring ourselves with. So like with the engagement, best practice and research has shown that students that are involved in extracurricular activities, whether it's clubs, sports, music, whatever it may be, tend to do better in the classroom. So that's why we wanted to make sure it was important to the board and to the district that we supported our engagement in students in extracurricular activities. Attendance, which Dave will just touch on briefly next, is that there's 2 reasons. One, you can't have higher test scores and kids be successful if they're not showing up. So we wanted to make sure that the board and the district supported the building by making sure attendance was important to the school. The other thing is your state funding formula is also based on your average daily attendance rate. So that's why it not only serves as an economic motivator for the district, it also serves as an academic motivator. So there was a twofold purpose on that one.
And we've worked together, our department here, the Student Activities Office and the athletic directors, with our attendance rate. And there's some incentives that they give out to their athletic teams for having high percentages for that semester. And then we do that along with our clubs and activities. And our rate last year was 94.2, and the previous year was 94.3. Those both were up significantly from previous years. Like I said, we had a couple things throughout the year last year that impacted our overall attendance rate. But for the most part, we want to get to 95%. We're almost there, and we're almost to our 70% goal. So overall, we're doing a nice job, and it's not just our efforts here. We can't do it without the efforts of our staff. And so we want to continue to increase collaboration, give them the supports they need so that we can reach those goals, ultimately providing experiences for our students.
A lot of what we put together here is it's one big school, obviously, one big package. So when one's up 5 or 10 and one's down 10 or 15, we were down actually 28 actual students from last year, but our lacrosse is up 38. So maybe 10 or 12 kids, migrated from one to the other, and that's all, it's not exact science, but they're here and they're participating in things. And again, we're trying to get them into whatever they want to do, and it shows up, I think, in the overall that things are leading towards increasing that. And some of the things that in athletics that we've been pushing and trying to continue to push is the feeder programs are always the next step to getting more students to come here and get involved because they're familiar with the school, they're familiar with some of the coaches, and as we started those feeder programs, 3 to 5 years usually is the time period where you'll start to see some major benefits where the community kids are staying in them, getting used to it, getting trained, getting skills, and deciding that they're going to be in the sport. So again, we think that's a good thing. They're also promoting feeder nights from schools that come. They can come free to watch the game, maybe put their uniforms on, things like that, so they get used to seeing their RB peers and other kids that are doing things. We're also trying to increase offerings on the freshman sophomore level for when we have enough students and certain freshmen that we have an A and a B, like our volleyball team or our basketball teams, where we can get a second game against somebody. And a lot of times that requires an extra scheduling event, which we will do because some teams in our conference don't provide those exact numbers. We'll go ahead and make a call and get another school from maybe a larger school to come over with their B program. And John touched on one of the last things is this athletic programs initiation to get all academic notoriety through the IHSA and also through the attendance thing. So we have a dual thing going on where we're trying to give them some accolades for being obviously smart teams, and a lot of our teams this year qualified for the IHSA award. And then the academic attendance part of it has been very good because we found obviously in season we want our students in class so they can be in their activities and at their events, and the competition was pretty good. Pizza parties were awarded to the winners, and they kind of had a fun coaching rivalry and kid rivalry for doing that.
Any questions from the board?
Dave, this is a simple question, but average daily attendance, that's minus kids that are sick.
Correct.
So basically with this percentage, you're sort of fighting the, this one year there's flu goes around. I mean, it's going to swamp out. It could swamp out your efforts to, increase the average attendance, correct?
Yeah, or weather. Or
Weather.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of
Cubs parade.
A lot of variables that go into this. So in case, people think, why is it 99%? Well, on any given day, just like any employee, you're going to have a certain percentage of people that are sick.
What was it, 2015, Kristen, where we had the snow day and we stayed open the one day and we had, 50% of the kids are absent. So having one day, although parents encourage us to want to stay open, if half the parents are going to keep their kids home, that could impact us on our state aid a little bit. Last year we saw the Cubs parade, or this fall we saw the Cubs parade. We had one day in spring that was we had several unexcused absences. So yeah, that's why when Mr. Mannon talked about the HERO process with tardies and with the deans going and doing home visits, and it's paid off. We've seen a good increase, almost a full percentage point from when we started this in 13. So
The state should have gave everybody a buy on the Cubs parade. They knew that was coming.
I appreciate that you are asking the kids to help you solve the problems, right? And because they know what they need, right? So that advisory board is awesome. Do you have a timeline for that survey, or have you thought about that?
Yeah, we want to, first I want to see where our transfers are at, because that's a significant drop off there. Students getting acclimated to the school typically don't because of reservations to connections, or reservations just get involved. So we typically, last year what we started was, let's connect up with them first. Let's get with our transfer students, have a couple meetings, and then we'll see where our quarter data lies, and then we'll grab students that aren't involved in any sports or activities in the fall season, and then we'll have those meetings. So that's typically when we're going to send that out then.
Anything else?
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we check.
Next,